Hello and welcome to Piwik PRO YouTube video series. Today we'll look into Piwik PRO dashboards and how to create them. So what we're gonna learn? We'll learn not only how to create a dashboard, but also how to customize it. Diving deeper, we'll explore the various widgets available in Piwik PRO. We'll understand their unique functions and how they can be effectively utilized. We'll also cover additional dashboard features and best practices for working with dashboards. Applying these insights could help you improve your dashboards, leading to more efficient data analysis. Before we start creating a dashboard, let's answer this question, which is, what is the difference between a dashboard and a report? In Piwik PRO Analytics, both dashboards and reports offer a high degree of customization, but they do so in distinct ways. Dashboards take the lead in flexibility in presenting data, allowing you to view all your key metrics on a one page through a variety of different widgets. This makes them incredibly versatile for getting a quick, comprehensive overview of your data. Reports, while customizable, focus more on delivering detailed analysis for specific data sets and perhaps are more suited for data exploration. Whereas here I can cross-compare different types of data, like different KPIs, different types of charts like bar chart or table or line chart. I have access to map. So all those are different types of widget that I can put all on one page and perhaps add some filters to each individual widget. And that is the key advantage of using dashboards. Okay, so let's add our first dashboard. So I'm going to click on add a dashboard. And in order to be able to add or edit a dashboard, your own dashboard, you need to have edit permissions in Piwik PRO. If you're not able to add a dashboard, that means you have viewer access only. So perhaps you would need to ask somebody else to create a dashboard for you or ask for higher permissions within your organization. And then here we have name. So I'm going to add something generic. And then we have visibility for the dashboard. So author means that only the person logging in with this particular email to Piwik PRO account will have access to this dashboard. Quite likely that's going to be one and the same person. And then all users, which means that everybody with access to this particular site and app, or should I say property, will have access to this dashboard, will be able to see it whenever they go to this property on their dashboards. And then all sites and apps, which is an additional check. And what it means that it's that this dashboard will be copied across each and every site and app across all different properties. So this is a good option for very generic dashboards that would be used for on each and every site and app. Or perhaps whenever you would want to create some sort of a dashboard template that will be used for all different sites and apps, all you need to do is just to perhaps add appropriate filters for particular site dashboard or perhaps some additional widgets. So that will save a lot of time whenever you need to create very similar dashboards across multiple different websites. Now I'm going to uncheck that one and I'm going to keep the visibility to author and I'm going to save it. And then in here we have our name. So I'm going to close it just so I have more working space. Here we have this star that if I'm going to click on that star, that dashboard will be always visible to me at the top of the dashboard list. Now my dashboard list is not long, but in some cases for big organizations, this list might be quite long. So if you have your favorite dashboards, you can always star them and they'll appear at the very top. So let me close that again. And in here, we're gonna start adding some widgets. So if you click on add a widget, we're gonna be adding some different types of widget. But first, what is a widget? Widget is an item on a dashboard that may have its individual, let's say first type of a widget, but then each particular widget, we're going to be choosing some specific dimensions and or metrics that will show us specific data. And then we'll be able to add some filters. We're going to talk about it in just a moment. First, let's add our first widget. The very first widget that I'm going to add is going to be the counter. What is specific about the counter is that it will show us a single number and is limited to numeric type of data, meaning it's going to show us just a numeric value on a widget. It makes it an ideal widget for showing KPIs or some important, more or less specific metrics. By more or less specific, I mean we can add a generic metric to the counter and make it more specific by applying some filters. We're going to get to that in just a moment. So let's click on add a counter. And what we see here is that I've entered an edit mode, which should look more or less similar whenever we're going to create any other widget. But also edit mode would look similar if we would want to customize a report or create a custom report from scratch. Anyway, what is similar in this edit mode is that they have dimensions and metrics on the right hand side. So metrics are always blue, but I can switch to dimensions and I can select from different categories. So if I can open a category, I can choose all different categories of dimensions, and it's the same for metrics. I could also use a search to find my metric or a dimension if I know their names. Now those dimensions and metrics can be drag and drop, so I'm going to drag and drop a metric session. This very widget is going to be very generic. I'm not going to be very specific. We're going to create another one, which I'm going to make more specific. I'm going to name it sessions. But on top of that, I'm going to click on this show metric name, which is going to show me the metric name. So probably the name of that widget is redundant, but I'm going to add it anyway, just to show you how the name appears when I'm going to check that box, and where the name appears when I'm going to add my custom name. So I'm going to add a little star here so you can compare, and then I'm going to click on show trend sparkline, which basically gives us this little line chart next to it. By the way, this is the preview mode, so it doesn't show us actual data, just a sample data. And in here I could potentially add some filters, but I'm going to leave it as it is. So let's save my widget. So the widget was successfully added. So let's add two more counter widgets just to show you how flexible and how useful this widget can be. This time I'm going to call my widget bounced sessions, and I'm going to use sessions metric again, but this time I'm going to add a filter, bounced session. Some of you may be wondering, why am I adding sessions as a metric? Because we do have a metric bounces, which could work fine. In fact, if I were to add bounces here, I wouldn't need to use this filter, but there's a reason I'm using that filter, and that will be quite obvious in just a moment. But before that, let me click on show metric name, show trend sparkline. The reason I'm using that because in a moment I'm going to create yet another widget just to show you how easy you can populate similar widgets by just changing some sort of filters in them. That'll be quite obvious in a moment. So let's save that widget. Now I have another widget so we can see the total of sessions. Now I'm looking at bounced sessions, so low engagement sessions. So in other words, bounced sessions would be the sessions in which visitor access our website but left without going to any subsequent page URL, and there was no conversions in a session or any sort of orders if you have your e-commerce website. So let's copy this widget. Notice that in here I have this yellow dot. It means that this particular widget has a filter applied on to it. So I'm going to copy that widget. I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it engaged sessions. But this time I'm going to change it to false. And that's it. And now I have sort of the opposite of bounced session, which is engaged session. So the total, now I see total is 6,025, bounce sessions 1766, and here I have engaged sessions. And that's how I can quickly multiply or create few widgets within few clicks. So it may save you a lot of time if you do it that way. That is also, this copy functionality is not only limited to this widget, but all the other widgets as well. Let's add one more counter widget. And let's say I would like to see the number of conversions for a specific goal. And let's say that device that the visitor who converted that goal was a smartphone, and they arrived via some sort of cost per click campaign. Okay, so what we're gonna need goal conversions metric for that, because that's the number that we're looking for. But we don't want to see all conversions, we want to see specific conversions. So I'm gonna select consumer loan, and now as device type, I'm gonna choose smartphone. So device type is smartphone. And as a medium, because this is where we can filter the cost per click campaigns. In my case, that might be different in your case, but in my case, cost per click is a medium. And now what is left is to add a name. So already copied and pasted it. I've added show metric name and show trend sparkline, so it appear at the final widget. And this is it. This shows you how specific you can be about a single number on a counter widget, which makes it a perfect widget for using with any sort of KPIs for your website or an app. Next widget is a line chart. So let's add a line chart. A line chart with a date fixed on a x-axis is used for displaying trends over time. It shows us how values change across time or time periods, allowing for easy visualization of increases, decreases, or some sort of patterns within data sets. So if we take a year, we could potentially see the pattern of some sort of seasonalities of traffic or conversions. If we were to put two metrics like sessions and, let's say, conversions, I could perhaps see whether the spike in traffic had led to any more conversions. If it did, perhaps to see what sort of conversions, and then again, what sort of channel may have brought that this spike of in number of visitors or sessions, depending what metric I'm going to use. But leave it as it is. So sessions and conversions, and I'm gonna add it. So that's my line chart. It always goes to the bottom. And there's one thing I want to change on my line chart. It's too dense. If I were to take perhaps a month, seeing each individual date might be useful, but not when you take the July till December. So I'm gonna change it to a week. I could do it for a month, but let's leave it 2 weeks. And now I can analyze it based on weeks. I can hover over to any week in any given date range and monitor what was happening. Next widget, bar chart. Bar chart provides a clear visual comparison of different categories by showing the compare of proportions between the values of a dimension or dimensions. So let's use sessions and source medium, and I'm gonna call it campaign traffic. So I'm missing one thing. I need campaign name filter is, so campaign name is not empty. What it means is that I'm going to see values for source medium, but only values for source medium when the visitor came via some sort of campaign, meaning campaign name is not empty. So let's save it. And now let's move our bar chart. So as we can see, bar chart is quite good at seeing proportions, and especially easy to see any outliers, like in this case healthcare banner. It seems to be underperforming, and we can see it straight away. I can hover over on specific bars and see how the exact numbers, but I don't need to look at numbers to see that this channel is underperforming, and that's the advantage of bar chart. We can spot it pretty easily. Next widget is a pie chart. Just like a bar chart, pie chart is good for showing proportions, but the pie chart would be used in cases where we want to see the composition of a whole, of a total for a specific dimension. So let's choose our dimension. I'm going to choose device type, and I'm going to use source medium contains, let's say, Google. So I don't want to distinguish between paid or non-paid traffic from Google, just a Google. And let's add a metric, which in this case I'm going to use again sessions, and I'm going to call it per device. Now let's save it. So I've got my pie chart here, and I can see the comparison. So I can see that the smartphones are having larger impact than desktop and other devices here. Next widget is a flat table. So let's add flat table. And the key advantage of the flat table is that it shows exact numbers for many different values of dimensions, and it enables us for detailed, precise comparison of those numbers. But obviously it depends on the need at hand, and we would use different widgets for different situation or different analysis. But let's add some dimensions and metrics. I'm going to add session entry URL dimension. You can think about it as a landing page dimension. We're going to add some entries, the corresponding metric to the session entry URL, and we're going to add bounce rate, and finally conversions. So what we're going to see here, I'm going to see landing pages and their performance, and the performance based on number of entries, meaning how much traffic, how many sessions basically started on a particular landing page, or in other words, how many visits we've had when the visitor entered via a particular URL. Then there's a bounce rate, meaning sort of like an engagement metric, which tells us how likely visitors were to stay on the website when they enter via a particular URL. And then go conversions, meaning the number of conversions per particular landing page. Now in here we see number of rows. So right now it's set for 5, meaning we're going to see only 5 URLs of our landing pages, but we can change it to 10, 20. 20 is maximum because we have a limited space on our dashboard, so it makes sense not to give it like infinite number of rows, obviously. In here I can sort my flat table, so I can basically change how it is sorted. Now it is sorted by the number of entries, so that's the first metric next to dimension, so from top to the lowest value. But you could do it based on bounce rate. If we were to change it to bounce rate, we could use the descending but also ascending order. So it's up to us what we need. I'm going to keep the default. Just wanted to let you know that such a functionality exists. And I'm going to add one more filter, or the only filter that we're going to add, which will be session entry URL contains blog, because I want to see the performance of our landing pages, but blog posts whenever they were a landing page. So okay, so I'm gonna save it, and now in here I've got my table. Now, it doesn't show us a lot of traffic for our blog, but we can get the idea of entries, bounce rate, conversions, and we can see the URLs of those landing pages. And each of those URLs contains a blog, so we see the data for our blog. Next widget is a map, so let's add a map. I'm gonna add some metrics, so visitors this time, and conversions. I'm not going to name it because it's quite obvious what we're looking at. What I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom into Europe, because let's say on my map I want to see just Europe. So let's zoom in a little. The reason I'm zooming in is because once I save it, that's going to be the default view on my map. So let's save it and let's scroll down. Notice that I can see Europe because that's how I zoomed in on my map. And in here, I can switch between those different values, goal conversion or visitors. I'm going to leave it as it is, but that's basically how you can use a map. Next widget is a text widget. So let's add it. So I could basically type some text in here and edit it if I want to. And what would be the use case for a widget? Because we're not showing any data. But we could, for example, add some context to the data. A person that creates a dashboard is not always a person that will be using the dashboard. So we could add some context, or perhaps divide sections, create few such widgets and divide them by section, let's say traffic, KPIs, and so on and so on. So we could divide the dashboard sections. We could also link to some custom reports. Now, custom reports such as funnel or user flow are not available in the dashboard because those are specific types of reports, but we could potentially link to them. So I could add, say, funnel, and I could link to the funnel and then save it. And then I could potentially click on it and go directly to funnel if I need to when looking or analyzing data on my dashboard. Now let's talk about some additional options available with dashboards and widgets, and perhaps some things that is good to know when working with dashboards. So let's dive into that. First, let's take a look at widget options. So if I hover over any widget, whether it's a line chart, bar chart, I will see those three dots. If I click on those three dots, I will see some options. So first one is edit. So I can edit the widget and change perhaps filters, perhaps the entire widget. Next one is copying. So I can copy the widget. What it would make create a new widget that will look exactly the same, but we could edit it before saving, and that way populate similar widgets. I was doing the same thing that I'm just saying with bounce session and engage session. I just reverted the logic of the filter. So that was the copying functionality. Remove. Obviously, I can remove the widget. I can check the filter definitions. If the widget has a filter, this one doesn't, so I don't see that option because this one has a filter. This yellow dot indicates that. I can check the filter's definition. So bounce session is true, and in here should be bounce session is false. So yeah, so I can check that. Finally, I can export data from a single widget. I cannot do it for the entire dashboard. I can do it for reports and custom reports, well, most of them. But when it comes to dashboard, I can do it only for a single widget. So if I click on that, I have all different formats in which I could export the data from a widget. But let's cancel that. Next, let's look at the functionality of the entire dashboard. So first here, we've got this share button. If I click on that, it will let me share my dashboard. So let's presume I'm gonna copy that link and send it to one of my colleagues via some sort of communication channel, email or Slack or whatever. They can click on that link, but how's that different from just copying the URL? Because I could do the same thing. And if that particular person to which I'm sending that link, what's the difference between this link and this link? This link, the share button link, remembers everything that was attached to this particular dashboard. So all the date ranges, filters, and segments. We're going to talk about segments in just a moment. Those will be applied just as we're looking at them. Whereas when we share it via sharing the URL from here, from the browser, visitor, whoever is going to receive that link, might be looking at different date range. None of the segments going to be applied. So that's the main difference between the URL from the browser and URL from the share button. Next, we've got this 3 dots, and here we have few options. We've got editing options. What it lets us do, we can change the name. So let's add name, just so you can see we can change it. You can change the visibility, but let's save it as it is. So I've saved my dashboard, and now the name was changed. Next, I can copy the entire dashboard. This is extremely useful for when we want to adapt someone else's dashboard, but not necessarily change the dashboard for that person. So we could copy and then adjust to our needs. When copying, we can also change the visibility, so they will not know that we stole their dashboard. Copying is also useful for when we want to edit a dashboard that is not available to us. By available, I mean that we don't have enough permissions to edit it. So only manage permissions gives us the possibility to edit someone else's dashboard. If I'm looking at someone else's dashboard, I cannot basically edit it, but I can copy it, and then the copy belongs to us, so we can then adjust it to our needs after copying it. Delete, that seems obvious. Save as a PDF, so if I were to save it as a PDF, I can choose the format and all these different functionalities. I can save it, and once I save it, it will be saved to our device. Next, there's a create a PDF schedule report. So if I were to click on that, I can sort of decide what will be the title of the email message, and all different functionalities, including segments and the frequency and scheduling functionalities, and then who's going to receive that dashboard periodically, because I can choose it to be sent monthly, weekly, daily, quarterly, and then that dashboard will be sent to anybody whose email we've included in that schedule report. Finally, we have show dashboard details. So if I click on that, that will show me the details of my dashboard. So all the, let's say, metadata about the dashboard. Finally, on top of widget filters, we could add some segments. Some of our widgets do have some filters. We can see those yellow dots. Those are the indicators that the filter has been added to each individual widget. So let's add a segment. So let's say smartphone and desktop. That is the comparison mode. So not only I can add single filter, I could add 2 filters. And now we're entering this comparison mode where green means this segment, and this purple means this segment. So purple is smartphone and green is desktop. And I can see them color coded on my data here. If you haven't worked with segments, segments in Piwik Pro are filters that you can create and apply on and off on dashboards or reports whenever you need them. Important information to know about segment is that in the context of dashboard is that we will use the segment filters on top of filters that are used within each and every widget. And it may sometimes lead to a situation where we see no data. So let's take a look at this example. Here I have channel Facebook organic. So if I apply it on my dashboard, I'm not going to see any data for campaign traffic because this is a Facebook organic. So campaign excluded all other traffic to include campaign traffic, and Facebook basically we excluded campaign traffic. So that may sometimes happen. This is especially useful to know when designing a dashboard that will be later used with segments. That is that we would need to plan our widget filters in advance to avoid such exclusion. One last filter that I wish to let you know about is Quick Filter that is available with the table widget. This is why I moved the table widget up to the top so I can showcase it easier. Now, the filter gives you the possibility for a quick and on-the-fly filtering. It can be accessed by clicking the funnel icon on the table widget, and then this window will pop up where you can add one or more conditions. And now the conditions that you can apply on to this very widget are the dimensions and metrics that were used to build this particular widget. In our case, that's the session entry URL, entries, bounce rate, and goal conversions. You can apply the logic of the filter on the level of a single condition by clicking on this particular place, and it will show you the available conditions. So is not, contains. Those conditions will depend on the type of a metric or a dimension that you're going to be using here. So in my case, let's add money. So that will include only landing pages that consist the phrase or word money in the URL. And now I could apply more conditions, but let's leave it as it is. The important information about the multiple conditions is that they all will be joined by the logic and. It's not possible to use quick filters using the logic or. For that, we would need to edit the widget or perhaps use a segment. But let's apply our condition. And now we can see that the filtering works because we do have money here, and money here. Now, advantages of this widget is that we can add it on the fly for quick analysis, and it will not be saved permanently with the dashboard. It's quick and on the fly, so it stays with the widget as long as we're using the dashboard. But as soon as we gonna refresh the page, the quick filters will be removed from the widget. In other words, it's a very personalized filter. This type of filtering is available to all users. That's another advantage, especially for users of Piwik Pro that have only viewer permissions. For them, all they've got left is segments to be used with the dashboard, and we need to rely on the whatever filters were applied already on the dashboard. If you want some additional filtering, you can use the quick filters. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to our channel. Check the description below to find some useful links like free Piwik Pro sign up page, community forum page, and links to related videos. Until next time.